So I work a lot with people in communications, and there's always this saying, like, you always get companies, no, we do a lot of communications, and you go like, there's never enough communications, my friend, never. Same thing goes with cybersecurity. There's never enough. Okay, well, I think everyone's set up. There's free space here at the front row, guys, if you want to sit down here. And without further ado, we're going to start presenting our next panel. I think it's a very interesting approach to cybersecurity. There's many ways you can talk about these things. But the next panel, we're going to talk about how cybersecurity is key when you're going international, right? When you're growing, how do you protect these things? And to talk about that, I want to welcome our next set of speakers, starting with the moderator, please, Nestor Serravalle from View Security. Big applause, Nestor. Thank you very much for joining us. Come on, applause, guys. Jeff Situme, Director of Corporate Strategy at SAP. Thank you, Jeff, for joining us. Big applause. Laurent Dumas, partner at Caphorn Invest. Laurent, thank you so much for joining. Samuel Linares, Managing Director at Accenture. Samuel, thank you very much. Take a seat, please. Pedro Pablo Perez, Global Security VP at Telefónica. Pedro Pablo, thank you for joining. And last but not least, Damian Ruiz, Red Team Manager at Bankia. Big applause, guys. The stage is yours. Enjoy.
Damian. Hello, everybody. Sorry for my voice. It's Madrid. I really appreciate you attend our session today. I think if you read the news, you know the importance of the cybersecurity in the digital world. So our topic is very specific for a startup. How many startups are here? Where's the startups here? No? Okay. Okay. So the point is very important, and specific when you going global. When you try to sell your solutions, your software, your new business in international form. So we will start talking with our fantastic panel. So thanks a lot for coming. I ask you, please introduce yourself after my question, and then you can explain the point. And then at the end of the round, we will have a conversation, an open conversation, regarding the main topics. So, first, Damian.
Good morning.
You are working in a big, huge financial institution. Your opinion is very important. In terms, what do you think about the main points, the security assurance vision, and the need for in-depth reviews to have some business with your organization or with this type of organizations?
Okay.
Okay, Chair?
Good morning. My name is Damian. I run the red team of Bankia. My job, in a few words, consisting in attack my organization, no? With the same tactics and techniques as hacker real world. Okay? It's a kind of evaluation. In relation to an expansion, I would like to insist on a key concept, the reviews. What is the relationship between a company that wants to cross national borders and reviews? Three ideas. One idea, more exposure. Any movement that involves more markets, more customers, imply more visibility and expression. And more expression require more security. Second idea, the world of compliance. No? Security reviews is a way of showing adherence to regulatory world. No? And third idea, supply chain security. Probably the expansion imply more suppliers, third parties, outsourcing service, that imply more elements to secure. Conclusion, opinable conclusion, no? I recommend to implement deep review process in all elements, okay? Security managers must pay attention to reviewing products and services. This is my
Okay, thanks, Fabian. Very, very interesting. And I think all the startups need to do this type of reviews and in-depth knowledge. Okay, Samuel. Hello.
Hello. How are you, Nestor?
Okay. Samuel, what is the impact at the cybersecurity in the startup levels and what they consider when going international? Please.
Perfect. First, I will introduce myself. My name is Samuel Linares, and I'm Managing Director with Accenture and the Industrial Cybersecurity Leader for Europe and Latin America. I've been working in information security and cybersecurity for the last 23 years and working in almost 40 countries. This weekend, we'll get the 41. So from the startup perspective, when we talk about cybersecurity and international approach, I would look at it from two different perspectives. The internal perspective from the startup, your organization, the services and products that you are trying to build or you are building and you are offering, your own organization, no matter if it is big or small, and of course the external perspective, because at the end you are probably based here in Colombia or in the Netherlands, but if you want to go international, you will start working with other people internationally, with different countries, different cultures, and you will be exposed to different environments. So first, if we look at the internal side of the perspective, I think that no matter which services or products that you want to offer to the market, you should and you must inject and embed cybersecurity in all of them. Because the reality is that there is a big requirement of the protection of the things that you are trying to sell, the things that you are trying to promote, and the things that you are trying to build. So one key message for that is the earliest that you include cybersecurity as a requirement in all of your products, on all of your services, the cheapest that will be for you. If you wait to the end that one investor comes and asks you for cybersecurity, what are you doing in this nice app regarding cybersecurity, and then you start thinking about that, it's probably too late for that. So first key message, to include cybersecurity in your products and services at the very beginning. From the internal perspective, second important thing or key thing for me, you probably have a lot of value and you are trying to sell and to promote and to build your own intellectual capital. So you have to look at yourselves as a key organization, and you will have a lot of information, a lot of intellectual capital that probably some of your potential competitors are interested in that. So again, no matter if you are a very small startup with 3 guys or you are a big startup with 51, you have to consider cybersecurity practice as an organization, not only from the technology perspective, but also from the people and processes perspective. I know that most of these organizations don't like the process and the procedures and the policies and these things, but at the end you will need it. So the sooner you start thinking about that, the better. So this was the internal side. Now if we look to the external side, 2 main things for me here. One of them is compliance. Of course, when you go to international, first thing that you need to see is basically the regulation that you have to comply with. And this is very important because these days you will have a lot of probably cybersecurity regulation that implies that you need to do things on that. So look for compliance, but my advice is that avoid the compliance-only approach, because usually comply stands for comply and lie. So if you are only looking for comply with something and check the boxes, this is a completely different thing that if you want to protect your organization. So leverage the need to comply with regulations to take it as a driver to protect your organization. And last but not least, from the external perspective, is the threat landscape and the culture. It's not the same that you work in Spain, in this environment, that if you are working in Saudi Arabia. I was living for the last 3 years in Abu Dhabi and working in all of this region. The threat landscape is completely different. So imagine that you are a startup that are based here in Spain, but you want to deliver services and sell products over there. You need to consider the threat landscape over there. And the levels of protection that you will need to include are completely different. And again, culture, people is the thing. If you go internationally, you will need to work with different cultures. In my previous team, when I was living there, I had people from US, from UK, Spain, Pakistan, Tanzania, India, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Jordan, and Lebanon. You have to manage the people, and not only from the culture, because they have different culture, different perspective, but now, if we focus on cybersecurity, even the perception of the cybersecurity, when you come from different cultures, is completely different. For a guy in Saudi Arabia, if somebody pushes a regulation or you publish a policy, they will follow, period. They will not ask for that. For a guy in Spain or in Colombia, when they receive a regulation or a policy, generally speaking, they will think how to find another ways. So, trying to summarize, from the internal perspective, key message: inject cybersecurity at the earliest stage possible. Look at cybersecurity for yourselves as an organization. From the external perspective, look at the regulations, look at compliance, but avoid the compliant light thing. And of course, take people into consideration with all of the culture considerations.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Jeff, you are working in a global organization. So my question is, what do you think regarding the importance of the cybersecurity when the startups try to sell to international customers?
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. So first, with an introduction, my name is Jeff Zittimer. I am the cybersecurity and privacy lead on SAP's corporate strategy team. I'm based out of Palo Alto. One of my many roles is working closely with SAP.io, which is SAP's early stage fund and incubator. And I work with the startups there, first to just vet the startups and evaluate them. Then once they're in one of our programs, to help them find a home within SAP, a business that will collaborate and partner with them. And third, I consult with them on the topic that we're talking about now, how to be enterprise ready, for how to sell to international enterprises such as SAP and SAP's customers from a cybersecurity and privacy perspective. To kind of answer the question, I'll start with the why is it important, and then go in the second half to then what should you do about it. So as far as importance, the cybersecurity discussion usually starts with a lot of scare tactics. There are a lot of breaches out there. Just in this past week, Facebook has a big one that most of you have probably heard of, 50 million people impacted. And some journalists who know how to use a calculator now calculate that under GDPR, the worst case scenario for Facebook is $1.6 billion. I don't believe it's going to be nearly that bad, but it got all of our attention, right? And then the next example, just from this last week, Uber just finalized on paying about $150 million for how they handled their 2016 breach. So again, that's a lot of money, but for especially small startups, you kind of wish you had Facebook's and Uber's problems. So kind of another number to scare the small startups out there is that 60% of startups, or sorry, small businesses that undergo a breach or experience a breach will not last 6 months later. So now I've kind of covered the mandatory scare you portion of the talk, and let's get that out of the way. Now, more practically speaking, as a small startup, if I needed to convince you to invest in cybersecurity, it probably wouldn't be being scared of that. You're not really a big target, and you don't really have that much money to lose, right? The real thing that should matter to you is, I'm trying to sell to these international enterprises. How do I get past their cybersecurity checkpoint? Right? They have these stage gates. Enterprises are getting a lot better at this, even before GDPR, but with GDPR as well. And if you haven't seen it yet, you will certainly soon see in one of your upcoming deals a 30-page questionnaire wanting to know deep and inside absolutely everything you do across all the layers, people, process, technology, what you do about cybersecurity. And you're going to be shocked by that, and you're going to be unprepared for it. And so either you prepare for it in advance, or when you see that, think back to South Summit and this nice panel here, what those guys talk about. Let's see what I can address there. And so to kind of jump then, okay, what can you do about it? So I separate that into two parts. You need to walk the walk, and you need to talk the talk. So if we start with talking the talk, you need to be proactive. You need to go out early in the sales process and engage that cybersecurity team of your customers. You need to engage them in a number of ways. One is almost passively. Just have a startup.com/trust landing page, and just outline on that what you do for cybersecurity, what you do to protect customers' data. Just have that out there for anybody who wants to see it. If that's still a little too out there for you as a small startup, you can start with just a 2-page PDF that basically says, this is the data we collect, this is why we collect it, here's how we secure it and ensure privacy. And offer that to your customer. In early conversations, if the line of business is excited to buy your product, and it seems like it's going ahead pretty well, ask, hey, can I engage with your cybersecurity team? Here's a document they might want to see. Let me know if they have any questions. Because you don't want to find that out 2 months in when they're almost about to sign, that now they have concerns and they have all this questionnaire for you, and you're going to have to spend months addressing all their concerns. So next on Talk the Talk, hire somebody who knows cybersecurity, who can talk to that security team, right? Also very important. Because those technical security people, when they scratch the surface and see that all you're doing is talking, you're not going to get very far. You have to have somebody who can actually engage with them and talk to them in their own language. And the last one is engage with the process. So this questionnaire is a learning opportunity. And if you don't have good answers to like 10 questions on there, that's fine. Few companies have great answers for all those questions. It's not a showstopper, it's a conversation starter. And after a couple of these, they're just going to be second nature and part of your sales process. And that means you're off and running and you're ahead of a lot of your competitors. Second half that I promised, walk the walk. As it was already said here, you need to bake security in. So you need to think about establishing a security baseline and everything that you do in advance. What I recommend to startups is to take a look at I think it's the NIST Top 20, the SANS Top 20. And that has a checklist of 20 security controls that you should aspire to meet. You're not going to meet them right away. But if you build a program around them and even your communications around them, again, you're already ahead of a lot of your competitors. Some very easy hygiene things you should be doing is encrypt all your data at rest, encrypt all your data in transit, and there are going to be a lot of other kind of similar, very easy things to do that'll get you that baseline of security. Very important also, you've established this baseline, you need to then evaluate it. So as mentioned a little bit by Damian, get an external scan, for example. There are companies out there that'll do these external scans. Some of your customers may use them on you anyway. So you may want to know what's in that report in advance, address the big things, and go back to them with, and even go to your customers and share that report with them. And so finally, if I've scared you a little bit and given you maybe an action list of like 20 items, the silver lining is, and I've mentioned this a little bit, you're a small startup, a lot of your large customers have multiple stacks, multiple products, a lot of complexity that's very hard to secure. You actually have an advantage of being small, few products, hopefully one stack. The next one is that the security teams that are going to be evaluating you from your customers, they're very busy, they don't have enough people. If you seem low risk to them, because maybe you don't collect as much risky data, so you may want to think about collecting less data, or if you seem like you know what you're doing, because you've engaged them so proactively and hit all the things they're looking for, they'll just leave you alone and move on to the next guy.
Thank you, Jeff. Very, very interesting, your point of view. I want a different point of view. You are an investor. So it's very important for our audience, your opinion regarding how cybersecurity creates or destroys value for the startups in the process to go international. Create or destroy?
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Laurent Dumas. I'm a partner at K-Point Invest. K-Point Invest is a VC fund based out in Paris. We invest in B2B startups, round A's and B's. We invest in various sectors, one of which is the cybersecurity. We have not had so many cybersecurity investments. Actually, out of a portfolio of 25 investments, we only have 2 cybersecurity. And we mostly invest in France and surrounding countries. To try and answer this question, a lot of things have already been said, so I'm not going to try and repeat what's been said because I really agree with what you guys have spoken about. Maybe I'll try to answer in two fronts. The first front is, are VCs, are we doing a good job at identifying or analyzing the cybersecurity when we invest in a startup? Do we know? Do we make specific studies on cybersecurity studies on a startup that we're looking for an investment in? And the second point would be, well, what should the minimum cybersecurity been done, for a startup to expand and to grow abroad? And I'll answer the question, if it brings value or if it doesn't bring value. So the first point, how does a VC, an investor, look at a normal business in a security point of view? Well, actually, I need to be really blunt with you. We're not doing a really good job. And actually, for an investor also investing in cybersecurity, this is a little bit awkward. But when we look at, for instance, a B2B platform, do we actually, mandate a due diligence specifically on on security? No. Why is that? Probably because, so far all the breaches we've heard of are the Facebooks and the big companies, and maybe we think that the small companies that are still in their seed or A or B rounds are not very important. This is a little bit what you said, and it's very rare that they get breached. So, except when it's on a specific, sector, which is like fintechs, or when they have specific, really data that is really important, that we try to be a little bit more careful. But otherwise, whatever B2B platform, we will not, and this is something we will have to change. So, we have to get better at this as a venture capitalist. The second point is, what is the minimum these companies need to do to comply and to sell, and does this bring or does it, retract value? Well, I think you've already touched this point, Jeff. More and more in the B2B space, these companies, to sell, they need to have this checklist and to point out all the checklists of the security and regulation checklist that they... So more and more, it's a have-to-do topic, and they have to comply. Whether they're doing more than just complying today, no, because they're focusing on driving the business, on growing, and on recruiting the best people. So they're doing the minimum to actually sell to these big companies. If they don't, yes, it will be value deterioration, and so we, they don't even need us as investors to tell them, you have to do this. They don't sell if they don't do it. So of course they do the minimum today, but they'll have to do better, I think, in the future.
Thanks a lot. Pedro, you are the owner of the cybersecurity business for the Telefónica Group. It's a big challenge in this moment. So what are you doing expect when some company, some startup become an international and try to sell solutions with you to the international customers?
Okay.
What are you expecting?
So first, let me introduce myself. So my name is Pedro Pablo Perez. I'm running the cybersecurity. I'm not the owner. I'm the manager only. I hope that I be, the owner, but it's not at that point. We started in Telefónica as a small startup, trying to to do business in cybersecurity. Now it's not a startup anymore. Last year we did more than 500 million, so it's not a startup anymore. But when we are talking to many companies that we are investing in cybersecurity or we work with them, normally I try to approach that there are, like 3 steps that they need to follow. So the first one is we need that they look like that they are secure. So look like that you are secure means you need to be, compliance with the regulatory requirements. You can be, with best practices. You can be also using ISO 271, these kind of things that you look like that you are secure, but perhaps you are not secure. But you look like, at least you care about that, and then you are trying to be compliant. So the second point is once that you look like that you are secure, you need to be secure. You need to ensure that you are putting some secure points that depends on the startup. If you are talking on a startup that is pure cloud-based, obviously you need to have some security measures on Amazon or on Azure, whatever. You need to ensure that when you are going internationally, at least your employees, they take care about the desktop, this laptop, desktop, wherever. You can ensure that you have an EDR, you have at least some measures that you take care about all the data that you have in this environment. And lastly, that is normally the most important thing, and is that once that you look like that you are secure and then you are secure, then you stay to be secure. That is normally the most complicated thing for the startups, because sometimes they put a lot of security measures, but then in 2 years or in 1 month, the problem that is that the business, you need to be open. You need to start to do a lot of things, and then something that is like is ring-fenced, and then it's very, very open, and then you don't take care about cybersecurity, and then you are very relaxed on cybersecurity mechanisms, and then you are not able to stay secure. And this is everything about processes. And as Damian said, you need to have a red team, or you can outsource a red team to ensure that once that you are secure, then you will be secure in the next, what is your security posture under some events. So it's everything about, for me, it's these 3 steps of ensuring that you look like secure, then you be secure, and then you maintain this security to be, and stay secure.
Thanks a lot, Pedro. In 1 minute, what other advice you want to share with our audience? Pedro, 1 minute.
So it's one of the advice that normally I say when we are talking about cyber. I try to avoid all the these things about Facebook has been hacked, compromised, because it seems that cybersecurity is something that is bad. And cybersecurity is perhaps one of the biggest opportunities that we have in the world. So we are talking about many, people claim that there are more than 3 million jobs not fulfilled in cybersecurity. There is, nowadays, cybersecurity, it depends on the area that we are talking about. Cybersecurity is an area of growth of between 10% up to 20%. So we in Telefonica, we are growing more than 60% this year. So it's crazy. So it's my advice is that cybersecurity, it's something that in the new ecosystem, when we are talking about digital, so there is no digitalization with cybersecurity. So cybersecurity is an opportunity.
Okay, thanks a lot. Lauren?
My advice to startups would be something that's already been said, but I think it's really the most important. When you're starting your building your product as a startup, think of the security, in the first step. Not once you've completed your product, but think cybersecurity in the first step. At least, the minimum, like we said, to be able to comply to the customers you want to sell to. And then you will add on brick. But if you have the structure in your product that will allow you to build on your cybersecurity, you won't have to then tear it apart and put the cybersecurity in it. So think cybersecurity early on.
Thanks, Lauren. Jeff?
Maybe the one thing I'd add is make your jobs easier, make your lives easier. Try to de-risk your solution or your product, at least in the early phases, as much as you can. Just because you can collect all the data and S3 buckets are so cheap right now, doesn't mean you should collect every piece of data, right? Only collect what you really need to deliver value now. And as you grow and gain more, and as you grow and gain more customers and start thinking about how to expand the business, then see what other data you can collect. But if you're collecting data that doesn't seem as risky, it means that you're also a less interesting target. It also means that the customers to whom you are selling won't look at you as such a risky startup to buy their services from or share their data with. And so that would make your lives really substantially easier to then build security within and be able to sell and get that foothold that'll then let you grow.
Thanks a lot. Somewhere?
Well, I would like to end with a positive message and leveraging the message of my colleagues. So the good news is that I think that you already passed the stage 1 because you like being secure. You are attending a cybersecurity panel discussion here, so we are good then. The second good news is that the due diligence process regarding cybersecurity from the investors are being a little bit late, so you still have time to do things. And the third key message, and taking my colleague message, is that, of course, size matters. So complexity is usually one of the first enemies of security. Usually startups are not really big, and especially at the early stages, will be way simpler to address and inject cybersecurity than later on. So positive measure. Stage 1 passed. Let's go for the second one, to be secure.
Thank you. Your turn, Damian.
Okay. Well, but it's the same message. I recommend to implement deep review. Why this instance and review? The facts. The security quality of products in internet is the reality. It's poor, very poor. Products, applications, infrastructures are very problems. Also, security managers pay attention to reviews all elements of products and services and infrastructure.
Thanks a lot. I want to say thanks a lot because we as a BU are working with companies and governments to create a more secure and friendly digital world using cybersecurity and all the value channel, all the processes, all the business processes. And I take very seriously your recommendations. I will do my job. Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, the audience, for attending, and the people here can respond some questions if you want.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Okay? There.
No.
Yeah. No? Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.